Thanks for joining me, Nicole. Nicole Smith, Nikki Smith, Penolopy Bulnick. There's probably some other names I don't even know of yours. But thank you for joining me here for a Maker Talk. I don't even know what I'm calling these Maker Talks yet, but they're really fun for me to have. So thank you for indulging me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I was really excited.
Well, I've been a big fan of all your Instructables, but the most recent ones where you've been integrating 3D printing and fabric and jewelry design have been really cool. And so I thought, if nothing else, let's get started talking about some of those. And let me share the screen here too, so we can kind of look at them as we go. All right, is that coming out right now, or is that
I see the bat necklace that I made.
Well, that's the most recent one, right? I think so. And actually, I just took a chance on printing this one out today, but I don't have all the cool jewelry accessories that are required to really make this thing cool. But talk to me about what inspired this particular design.
You know, I can't really remember specifically. I just knew I was trying to decide if I could come up with another Halloween piece before it got too close to Halloween. Because I hate to post holiday things too close to the holiday because I feel like they kind of get lost. But I wanted to do something different. And I was thinking about doing like a spider web, but then I thought it would get too uncomfortable. And then I thought bat wings would be fun. And then I was trying to think of more of a nicer way to do it than creepy. So I kind of just came up with a really simple bat wing design and then decided to have just like one little bead dangling from it. And I wanted the detail to stand out, so I needed to do it in 2 colors. And I thought black and silver looks pretty good together. Yeah, and
this was something that was new for me too. You included a color change script in this particular file, so that the slicer software could direct the printer to take a break to change out the filament. Is that right? How did you come across that, Dee? Because I'm new to 3D printing. I know you're kind of new to 3D printing. You have more experience than I do, but how did you come across the color change script?
A lot of Googling. It's just really a lot of looking and then finally deciding on what I was willing to test. And so far, they've all worked out. The only time I've had a problem is when I tried to alter the script, because I was like, maybe I can make it go. Instead, it jammed the head into the base. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stick with what people know works. Not try to make things up on the go.
Yeah. I'm going to kick it back over here to hopefully my screen. Let's see. Controls are still something I'm working out. But yeah, I didn't use the change script because I wasn't using the advanced slicer software. Can you see these?
Yeah, those look great. I like the color.
I did a little red background with the gray little structure, and then I did one where I forgot to pause it and swap out the colors. But what this taught me was that, and I think this is probably true for a lot of your designs recently, is that they're quick prints, right? A lot of them are very deliberately light and thin because they're either wearables or there's something that you don't want. They're embedded into fabric, and you don't want a lot of heavy, stuff built up onto the fabric. But I think that's another cool advantage of trying out your designs, is that.
Wait, you paused. Wait, there you are.
Yeah, I lost you for a little bit there. But has that been something you've been deliberately designing for, or that's just a happy accident for this kind of stuff?
I think it just kind of goes with what I like to do. Like, they're just smaller pieces. Something I've kind of talked to my husband about, because it's like I want to make things on such a small scale. It's making sure that they come out right with like bigger tips and stuff like that, and how I can change that in the slicer to make sure they come out all filled in. But yeah, I think it's just the kind of end product I'm going for, that it just automatically ends up being small and short.
Yeah. And are there other design, like, what have you always wanted to do, the 3D printed jewelry designs or the printing on fabric, or was there something that you saw that really, got you hooked on that idea?
Well, when I first heard about 3D printing, I had no interest in it at all because I just didn't know anything about 3D design. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to figure this out. This is too complicated. I don't want to do it. And then my husband got a 3D printer like a year ago, I think it was. And I was like, well, maybe I'll try. And I'm just kind of drawn towards jewelry and that type of thing because it's what I like to wear. And so I'm like, well, I'll see what I can make there. And then the other part, the whole printing on fabric or printing on string, it's just, I always have this kind of drive to like do things, but then do them differently too. Because I don't want to always do what everyone else is doing. And that's not, I obviously didn't invent doing, printing on fabric. I saw someone else do it. But then once I saw them do it, I'm like, well, now what can I do with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was
like trying to improve.
I haven't seen anyone else's guides on Instructables that are they're really touching on the same designs or the same approach. So I think it's well, and we should also mention you do work for Instructables too, so you have a neat or a unique vantage point onto the kind of content that's already out there, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of times I'll see things and I'll be like, you know what, I think I saw something similar like 5 years ago. And it's just all kind of stored up here in the back.
Yeah, and now you're wearing two of your other designs, right? Your earrings. Yep. You have an Instructable for those, and your Constellation necklace.
Yep, both of them I have up on Instructables.
Yeah, and now the earrings, I haven't tried those, but it seems like that would be one that's like particularly chancy to do because you're dealing with just one embedded string, right? Instead of like a layer of cloth or something else. So how much trial and error went into those earrings?
It did quite a bit, but like you said, with my prints, they're really quick, which is really nice because I hate to like waste a bunch of filament. So it's nice to have all these little tests. But it took a while, especially for these earrings. I think I went through like 7 different designs because I started it one way and then they were all sliding off. And I started with different types of string and then they come off. And it was just one after another. I had to keep changing things until I got it the way I wanted it without it falling apart on me.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's cool too, even though I'm guilty of not having done this, is that a lot of the clasps and little accessories for the jewelry in particular, I believe are pretty inexpensive to get, right? Or they're a trip to the craft store to get.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of secret or particular type that you'd recommend, or any of the trial and error on the thread where there's a particular type that works out better than others? Or
well, with the thread, I think it's important that it's like kind of a fibrous thread. Like I kind of talk about it in the Instructable because I wanted it to be more invisible. So I was using a nylon, kind of like a fishing line, but then they just went right off of it. Like it took barely any tug and they all fell off. And I decided, well, that's not going to work. But then I did get it to work with like clear, but it involves measuring it and putting knots in the string where it's going to print. Like after, because I tested like braiding the string and they still fell off, and gluing it and the glue showed up. So I found knots worked because then the knots were able to get caught between the plastic better.
Yeah.
But it's just a lot more tedious. And then you still have the risk that the thread's going to move or the string's going to move a little bit. And then it just kind of throws the whole print off. And then you've put all that work into it and you have nothing.
You cry a little bit. But again, at least you've only invested that one particular, like a pretty short print. Like you can get the trial and error sobbing out of the way pretty quickly until you find something that works. Well, I want to take a look at some of these other Instructables that you have up, and hopefully I won't do the infinite view. Let's try this. All right, so we've done the wings. Here's your Instructables overall author page, which I think you have over 200 some odd, what is it, 250, 284 Instructables. You've been very busy at Instructables, but I imagine you feel you know, somewhat accountable for both working for them and getting them up. Let's look at this is another Halloween one, right? And this one I printed out yesterday too. And I printed out the bloody one, and it kind of grossed out my wife, but I'm like, this is really cool. Come on. My son was impressed this morning when I was holding it up. And these are, again, like they're just a few layers of printing to get this. But I've never seen anything else like it. I don't know why I haven't seen these. And so you've got both a slash and a cut, or a stitch, right? The slash and then the stitch design. And I also love that you drew these up in Tinkercad. I've been trying to promote the Tinkercad page or the Tinkercad social, because I think it's really neat that these designs are Tinkercad based. But then this one also, you did some sculpting of at least of the bloody one, I think. And
yeah, I tried to give it a little bit more dimension, and I couldn't figure out how to do it in Tinkercad. I actually tried first, but I'm just not that talented, I guess. So then I brought it into another program I had used in the past and just kind of messed with it. And it gave it a little bit more depth, not a lot, because you don't want a lot anyway for this type of design, because it's meant to be more flexible and thin.
And I just did mine in PLA. Was that what these ones are based in too?
Yep, these ones are just PLA. I did later do one in a flexible filament, and it's a lot more comfortable, which is kind of obvious, but these aren't really meant to be comfortable. It's more like, look what you can do if you print really thinly.
Yeah.
Is more what it is. And then I just put it into a certain design.
So great. I got to get some class to be able to take advantage of this. And this one really blew me away. The masks. Why? And this one, it was after you'd done some 3D printing on Tulle fabric before. But when you took it this direction, I was really, I hadn't seen anything like this either. And this was the first time I saw you mention an Etsy page for your stuff too. And it totally makes sense for stuff like this. What was the, what got you around to thinking about doing masks?
Well, it was right after I had done the Instructable on just printing on Tulle, and I was trying to think of just different things I could do with this technique. And I still have more things I want to try, but I don't even, a lot of times I can't remember specifically what made it click, but I decided to try doing masks, and then it just seemed like it worked out really well. And I just kept, you know, testing out the designs and figuring out how to make it fit the right way.
Yeah.
Then it just went with it from there.
And the patterns you came up with are really cool too. And what was the trick for for getting the patterns in Tinkercad? Was it just like a lot of copy and paste, or was there a particular way you were thinking of the patterns?
Well, I started with the moon and stars one, so it was more of a non-symmetrical, chaotic kind of design. So I just kind of put things all over the place. And I had brought in actually just a basic image of a mask so I could get the general idea of where everything needed to sit. And then I would do a test print and then move things around from there.
Yeah.
And then after that, I just kind of, it was a lot of copying, pasting, and then just trying to like line things up. And for the other masks, I think I did them all one side and then I just copied it and flipped it and lined it up. So you only really had to design one side of the mask for those ones.
All right. And so the trick for the Tulle fabric is to start your print, pause it midway, and then put the tool down as flat as possible. I see here you're taping it down to get it nice and stretched out and flat, right? And then continue the print, and it'll just print like it doesn't even see the fabric.
Right. It doesn't affect it at all because it's so thin and porous.
Is there something about the timing? Is there a particular how many layers you want to get up, or you just have a feel for it? Or
well, I've tested a couple, but it didn't really seem to make that much of a difference. So I started doing it right after the first layer because I wanted it as close to the skin as possible so that the mask could come out of it, which makes a lot of sense if you see like the stars and moon, because they're not just straight up. They've got some dimension to them. Right. So it needed to go on very soon so that it wouldn't mess with the design.
All right, and then the Tulle fabric goes in as one piece, and then after if the print is done, then you go back and cut out the eye holes and the nose and actually shape it into a mask. Right? Man, it's so cool.
And what's fun for this, like for that one, is you could just tape it to your face if that's something that doesn't bother you, and then it really is kind of just floating there.
Yeah,
that was the very first design that I tried months ago.
From a distance, it has like a very almost like a tattoo effect. I mean, a pretty face tattoo. Cool. Let's see what else we have. We have the earrings, which you were wearing and you showed off, and this was another direction where I'm like, this was right after, maybe like a week after I saw the masks or the original Tulle fabric one, and I can't imagine how much trial and error it took for just getting that single string design through. But this is really cool, and I think I mentioned this in the maker update. If you can get this technique down, it's like you've got your own little earring printer that you can think of instead of even thinking of it as being a 3D printer. You have your earring factory.
That's actually the way it was actually for a couple of nights, because it's something I've been wanting to put on the Etsy store. So I've been trying to print up every combination of color that I have. So I just have like boxes, and I was marking them on a list, and it was like an earring factory going on.
Yeah, man. And then are there other designs that you came up with that didn't fit in this particular Instructable, or other ways you're thinking about taking this?
Well, I have a necklace design that's meant to go with the this type of earring, the one that's kind of like a wind spinner. And I've been still trying to work it out, because you got to make sure it's not going to break and the pieces aren't going to fall off. And because it's very long, it has a lot more opportunity for the string to shift. So I've actually had to start using a glue stick to hold it down. And even then, it still wants to shift. So it's just trying to figure out the best way to handle that, because I've been doing it with 2 strings to hold them in place. And so far, the top string keeps getting shifted out of place, so it doesn't even connect anymore. So still just working that one through.
And then the trick is also to put a knot in the bottom.
Well, for these, that was also something I was trying for the necklace. This one, I don't need it as much, because I did alter it. Like, these are kind of the first designs, and then I changed it so the top had a little bit more space. But these ones seem to fit pretty good, and I also use a glue. So when I trim the string off the bottom and the top, I put a little glue on there too. But if you match up with knotting, that will definitely help hold them in place. But so you can see there, that one got too far off to the side.
Oh yeah, man, so great. And then the necklaces, yeah, this was I think maybe the first one I saw you do, right?
Yep.
And they're beautiful. I mean, I imagine when you get close up, you can see the tool a little bit, and the effect is lost somewhat, but from a distance, they just look like they're floating.
Yeah. It helps that it's so holy that it kind of disappears on its own. And as long as you have a color that's kind of similar to your skin tone, it helps it just kind of hide there.
Yeah. There we go. So there's kind of the Celtic-y one, and then the chevrons. Yeah. And have you ever seen something like this? I mean, as a guy, I don't go to enough jewelry shops to really know if things like this are out there, but it really surprised me when I saw them.
Well, what pushed it over the edge for me to finally do it was I saw just a picture on Imgur, which I spend way too much time on, and someone had done kind of a big statement kind of necklace using this technique. And at that point, I was like, okay, I have to do it now. I can't keep putting it off. And then I just kind of tried my own little designs.
Great. And again, that was a Tinkercad based design. This one too, the 3D printed Constellation necklace. And then this one, the trick is like the little gemstones in here are just like costume jewelry ones that you picked up out of another necklace. Is that right? Or
yeah, it's just like you can buy strings of rhinestones, and I just kind of took them out. You can also buy them flat, but I already had these, so I designed them around. I designed the necklace spots around these ones that I already had. And then I also did other ones with just stars for those who don't want to do the rhinestones.
Yeah. It's so neat. And I have to, it's just when I see stuff like this, I have to confront my own like kind of male bias and view on my 3D printer. Like I'm so like conditioned to like make functional things, or like make what never comes to mind is the idea of making necklaces or you know, any kind of wearable thing. And I think it's an unfortunate blind spot that I have. And so I love it when I see things like this that are really well executed and show me a whole different perspective on this tool.
Yeah, it's kind of my default. It's like when I see something, I'm like, well, now how can I make this into jewelry?
Another thing, or here's another, now these are not 3D printed, right? But these are the stained glass paper earrings. Tell me about these, because this is my first time seeing these on your Instructable.
So this was done with my Silhouette paper cutter, and it's another thing that I was doing a lot more before I got into the 3D printing. And I had wanted to do something like stained glassy out of jewelry, and it actually took me a while to figure out how to get it to work just right, because I couldn't find the material I wanted for the glass part of it. Because glass, you can use real glass to make stained glass jewelry, but it's really heavy and takes a lot of time. And I thought this would be a fun, really light alternative. And after going through 2 other materials, I finally found that just simple file folders like that people use for presentations and stuff like that, you just cut them up and glue those on and they work perfectly.
I would never have thought of that. Wow, they look really great. And then that same material really does let the light through, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been buying up some kind of, let's see if I can show you here. It's like a thicker material, but they're made as like transparencies for like overhead projectors. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. That's actually what I was looking for this, but I couldn't find the colors that I wanted.
Yeah.
So these file holders are kind of like transparencies, I would say, their thickness and their texture.
Yeah, for something small like this, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I tried this really thin, kind of like cellophane, and that was just tearing horribly. And it did work. It was just super hard to work with. And then I tried photo filters, and those were impossible to cut, way too thick. And then even if you got it together, it ended up with a really thick earring, and it just didn't look very good for what you're going for.
Yeah.
But these ones really worked out.
Cool. And then I'll include a link on here for all of your Instructables. There's so many, and of course, I think that one thing I've always seen of yours that comes back again and again are the desserts you make, which always look incredible. Every time I come to your particular author profile, I get hungry, but I also get inspired.
That's good.
Yeah. And is there anywhere else that you want people to check out?
Probably just the Instructables. I'm usually on Instructables, and now I'm on Etsy more, but
That's great. I'll include an Etsy link too.
Sounds good. I won't say no to that.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. It was really fun talking.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.